Anyone who likes to drive has their favorite bit of road, and we all like to pretend that maybe that road is a racetrack. Well, as late as the 1950s, public roads were still being used as racetracks. The most famous race of all, the Mille Miglia, 1,000 miles through Italy. You know, as a kid, I read countless books about the Mille Miglia. You know, legendary heroes like Sterling Moss, who to this day still holds the record that will never be broken of over 100 miles an hour for 1,000 miles. It's pretty amazing.
It is without doubt the greatest proper road race there's ever been. If you're a racing driver, you love doing crazy things. You have to start out realizing that the danger is addictive. And then you add all the other ingredients that come in with people walking across the road. And you see, when you're driving on the straight, the guys all start to lean forward. And so really you're driving into a funnel. And I found if you wiggled the steering a bit, the car would do this. It'd all pull back and give you a bit more room. It could only happen in Italy.
Finally, I'm getting to follow in the wheel tracks of my heroes. You know, Jaguar's offered me an XK120 to this year's race, and gosh, it's like being a kid again.
The first real sports car I ever saw was an XK120. I grew up in a little town in New England. Anything less than 4 doors was considered a sports car. And suddenly I saw this XK120 and my jaw literally dropped. I still remember that day like it was yesterday. In fact, that car and the man who let me sit in it still owns that car 60 years later in the same house in the same barn. I went to see him.
Well, here's the car, and here's Don Milligan. Don, how are you?
Very well, Jay. How are you?
This is the bushy-haired guy that showed me the car when I was 9 years old, so nothing has changed.
No, even the color is the same.
Well, a couple of changes, but yeah, the color is the same. Yeah, I mean, and when did you start away?
Oh, about 1970. I got tired of using it. I had something else that interested me a little bit more, and it needed some work, so I tucked it away for the duration.
Well, you know, I never lost my interest. This is a car that really got me started and got me excited about cars. In fact, the first classic car I ever bought as soon as I got any money was my 1954 XK120, all because of Don, because he let me sit in this car when I was 9 years old. So see how impressionable young people are? Well, the fun thing about Jag is you can see the connection from the early cars to the latest F-Type. Let's meet the man responsible for that. In fact, he's going to be my co-driver in the Mille Miglia this year. Ian Callum. Ian, come on in. Congratulations on all your success with this F-Type. It's fantastic.
No, thank you. Yeah, this is the first sports car we've done since the E-Type, the first proper two-seater sports car, so we're delighted with it.
Now, I have to ask you, what car are we going to be driving in the Mille Miglia?
It's XK120, open
Right.
top, and in fact it's an Curie Cos car, which is really exciting because a bit of Scottish there.
It is Scottish, and my mother's from Scotland, and we have a little connection. Yep. So how seriously do we take this? I mean, do we sort of laugh and have fun, or are we dead on serious with the matching outfits, or what do we do?
Well, you can take it one of two ways. We've got to get from Brescia down to Rome,
Right.
then back to Brescia again. What happens is there are sections by which you've got to do a certain distance at a certain time.
Right. I mean, do you have time to enjoy the scenery, or are you just concentrating on, no, wait, we're 50 yards away, no, back up!
So it could be a bit like that.
Yeah.
No, you will have time to enjoy the scenery, but what you will enjoy more is just sort of bantering off with the Mercedes SLs and things, you know, and taking another few cars out, various bends and stuff. But yeah, there's times to enjoy it, absolutely. And as long as the rain stays off, it's a blast. If it's raining, you get wet.
Yeah.
And it gets very hard work. This is our Bible for the trip, okay? It's got all the maps in it.
homework.
This is homework. You got to read all this. You got to memorize every number in here.
Yeah.
You know, like...
See, I didn't tell you this. I'm dyslexic. You wouldn't have done this thing with me.
Wonderful.
But I am dyslexic. I will get all... See, and that says 251.
It
but
does.
no, it's 152.
It is 251's fine. In the old days, it was a 1,000-mile race from Brescia to Rome, back to
Non-stop.
Brescia. Non-stop.
Right.
Moss did it in a day.
I know.
Can you imagine?
He did it in a day with
He averaged
Jenks
100
sitting
miles
next-
an hour.
Yeah, I know.
They had
I
this
know.
toilet roll. They just rattled out the whole map
Yeah,
in this
yeah,
toilet roll.
yeah,
It's amazing.
Going in the car I'd got, which would do 180 miles an hour odd, on roads I certainly didn't know. I mean, Jenks, who was 3 times world champion in a sidecar, he came with me and gave me signals from a box which I've got, and that was how I drove it. I drove it sort of blind, but he'd say, right, flat out, because when you say you're going up a long, steep incline like this up into a town, I need to know if when I get to the top, do I go right, left, or straight on? And he'd give me signals, you know, and then he'd give me caution signals, which we'd made notes, sort of pace notes now. They didn't exist then.
10,
Okay. So now we're counting down, right?
5,
Right.
4, 3, 2, 1.
Perfect.
Spot on.
Spot on.
Perfect.
We are more than set.
That was perfect. Well done. Thank you.
We don't want to over-rehearse.
No.
The worst thing you can do is over-rehearse.
No. You don't.
You don't want to be too prepared. That's the worst thing that can happen in one of these things.
You know, Italy is just crazy. It's the exact opposite of real life. I mean, the energy, the passion, the food. I mean, people love cars the way soccer fans love soccer. Brescia is the home of the Mille Miglia. The town was overtaken by the race and the people. Over 450 classic cars are entered. And if you've ever seen 450 cars racing, it's quite a sight. But there's a lot of paperwork, a lot of technical checks, and when you're in Italy, things are not that well organized. In the Jaguar team, we have some big names from racing and entertainment as well. Former F1 driver Bruno Senna, Martin Brundle, both race stars. Martin won La Course Le Mans with a Jag, and they're driving a long-nosed D-Type. You know, every time a car would appear on the street, people go crazy. It was like a Beatle reunion. It was like One Direction. I'm showing my age. And we actually had a rock star on our Jaguar team. Brian Johnson, the singer with AC/DC, great guy, funny, and a good driver.
Who knows anything about this car at all? I want to know where I can put me back. We really don't know what to expect. Yeah, he was just telling me, you know, some good things. He just said, you know, which one of them was great. He's good. And red lights, don't worry about that.
Yeah.
And if there's a traffic jam, just go on the pavement. And I'm like, is he kidding? And he said, no, I'm deadly serious.
Yeah.
Just climb the pavement. Don't let. And if it's, you know, just get on the other side of the road. Don't worry, they'll love you. You go first, Jim.
I've never seen instructions like that, so I have no idea what to expect. You know, I guess all is fair till you get out there, and then.
I just think it's gonna be bags of fun.
Yeah.
You know, why do anything if it's not gonna be fun? It's just not worth it, is it?
Exactly.
You know.
And another rock star, example, TV presenter and racer Jody Kidd, Oscar-winning actor Jeremy Irons. Day one is in fact night one, a drive into the evening from Brescia to Padova, kind of a baptism of fire.
And here it is, Mr. J. Leno, all the way from Hollywood, USA with Ian Callum.
Our car is worth $3 million. And you know, the Jag is so loud, Ian has to direct me mainly using hand signals and to tell me which way to go. And he gave me some hand signals I didn't quite understand.
4-8, you turn right, that's it. Right. Straight. Remember to pace yourself. Right, you're going to turn right in a minute. Right, round there, that's it.
every place needs one thing, you know. In Germany, you can go on the Autobahn. In America, you're stuck at 55 or 60 miles an hour. This is one of those things Italy always has and hopefully always will have. So it's just one of those odd things you could never introduce it anywhere because it wouldn't make any sense. So the fact that it exists is because of tradition. Really exciting. It's hilarious to have to be chasing police. I know usually the police are chasing me, so actually chasing a police car who's driving at a high rate of speed is hilarious.
I was telling him when he could pass. He wouldn't listen to me. I said when I told him not to pass, still passed. It's good. Yeah, scary, very scary, but good.
Day 2 is the big one, half the length of Italy down to the capital, Rome. 15 hours, actually more. Brian's appearance creates mayhem wherever he goes.
Well, it was good apart from all the fans going conkers and all the fights and the... So I'm worried it's going to get a bit dangerous, so we're going to try it again today and just hope there's no more madness, you know? Are we started?
Yeah.
Lads, it's been an absolute thrill talking to you at this breakfast time, but I've got a 15-hour drive ahead of us. Oh, listen to that. Now, there's the music. I will do, me son. Thank you.
Most people, if you have a high-performance car, if you really count the seconds when you have your foot in it, you know, you go to pass it, but you nail it, you feel an acceleration. It's like 1, 2, 3, boom. And then you back off because you pull back in your lane, or you're doing 80, 90 miles an hour. The difference is here, when you see a long stretch, you put your foot in, and it keeps climbing and climbing and climbing and climbing, and you go, wow, and then it starts to get a little scary, you know? I mean, you realize how brave guys like Moss and Salvadori and Fangio were. And you know, once that thing got up to 120, boy, it's walking around and you touch the brakes, and because they're drums, you feel them start to shudder for a minute. You know, and the car goes into a shake, and it's like, whoa, this is scary. This is scary now. You know, because most people don't really drive the car to the point where it's scary. They just kind of thrill themselves for a second and then back off. When you just keep your foot in it, you go, wow, those took some guts.
I'm right behind you.
Hey!
Of course, being Italy, we stop for lunch occasionally. See, Sterling didn't get to do that.
I remember I went like this, which means I would want to eat. And he had an orange, and he brought it out. And of course, if you saw your face, you know, the face was all black. And by the time he gave me this orange, boy, it was absolutely black as anything. So I threw it overboard and made do with a banana. Because a banana, at least you can peel and it's clean, and you put it in your mouth.
Well, we're on that special training diet. It's pasta and cream puffs. That's what you pretty much eat when you do this kind of a race, just to try and stay out of shape. It's important to stay out of shape because it's harder, much harder to do when you're out of shape. You know, anybody that's in shape can do one of these things all day long. When you're really out of shape, that separates the real men. You have the best and the worst. The best is, of course, the roads of Tuscany, the wide open spaces. You're out in the country, you're out in the hills. It's just unbelievable. The worst is there's obviously a deal with the various towns that you kind of have to bring the caravan of cars through the center of town. And the first time you go into one of those sort of stone
village deals, you know, it's it's unbelievable. By the 300th one, you go, okay, wow, okay, I'll sell these. We were driving for 15 hours. I'm not even sure a race car driver spent 15 hours in race cars, especially the pouring rain. And this gets a little slippery. There's no traction control or ABS or any of that kind of stuff. But it was certainly exciting. Wait, we're just halfway? Really? Driving 15 hours today, 8 hours yesterday? We're not even halfway? Wow. Day 3 is meant to be the reward. Rome to Bologna, 12 hours through Tuscany on some of the most beautiful roads in Europe. You really have to keep your wits about you. I mean, you're driving, for the most part, cars are minimum 50 years old, 60 years old, and you don't know brakes, handling, suspension. I mean, everything is 50 to 60 years old. I mean, they've all been updated, but a lot of these other cars that don't come from Jaguar Trust or Mercedes are just private owners, and who knows where they are, you know? So you don't know if someone's going to lose it and slide into the crowd. There's no barriers of any kind. And then there are kids playing chicken, running across the road. So I mean, it's great fun, but you really have to go, okay, this is not a race course, it's a public road. Martin Brundle is one of those guys that I remember watching back in the day, because, you know, Jag had not won Le Mans for a long time. And when he won, that was terrific. And very skilled driver and a nice guy, like Sterling Moss, like Fangio, like Parnelli Jones. They have that killer look in the eye when they get behind the wheel.
It's the most extraordinary event. The speed, the enthusiasm, the excitement, and the roads are ducking and diving and twisting, and you're going up through the gearbox. Only 4-speed on the D-type, incredible acceleration, and you're all the time wary that you've got to get it slowed down because it's narrow, the bodywork's very slippery, it doesn't have downforce, it has lift, and it's bucking and moving around on the bump, so you're steering the car constantly, even in a straight line. And the speed builds very easily. It's more a question of getting the speed off into the corners. You don't know which way the road's going to go next. It's like riding a motorbike. You kind of look for the vanishing point and you begin to understand where the corner might end, and you pick up the throttle. With a D-type, you really have to, it's quite soft and lots of suspension travel. So you lift off the throttle and turn the wheel so the nose will go in. So you unload the car with the throttle pedal. Then you pick up the throttle and sit it on its right rear if it's a left-hander, or its left rear tyre if it's a right-hand corner, and just balance it on the throttle. And then you just get a beautiful rhythm going through the trees, through the crest, the turns, the lefts, the rights. Brakes are great, I have to say, and the faster you go, the better the brakes are with the system the D-type has. You get more pressure on the brakes. The clutch is so heavy, you need the leg of a mule to push that, and you have to be patient with the gearbox. You can't rush the gears, otherwise they just crunch. So you just give it a little pause in between each shift, and then it's hot knife through butter up through the box, and then down. You need a good old blip of the throttle.
This race bears no resemblance to the race Sterling Moss raced at. I mean, when Sterling Moss set his world record, he set an average of over 100 miles an hour, and he did the whole thing in one day. This is laid out over 4 days, and plus you go through piazzas, and people come out with cookies, and little girls come out and give you glasses of orange juice. It's not, you know, Sterling Moss wasn't grabbing orange juice at 100 miles an hour. I don't think he ever stopped. Well, he never stopped once during the whole race, obviously, except maybe to refuel. So that's the difference. This is really like a rally. But the thing I love about it is, you know, as much as I enjoy Pebble Beach and all those kind of events, the cars are static. Here you get to see and feel and smell the cars. You know, when you see a little Alfa Romeo parked on the lawn at Pebble Beach, it just looks like a little car. When it passes you at 80, 90, or 100 miles an hour, you know, when it's screaming at 7 grand, and you see how it's just sliding back and forth through the turns so gracefully, you go, oh, now I see what it is. It's 1,000 miles, and you're running, well, not flat out all the time, but certainly a good portion of the time. And it is exhausting. I mean, it's a point where you go, okay, you know, it's as if you
got caught speeding and your mother said, all right, listen, for the next 3 days, you're going to go 100 miles an hour every day for 15 hours a day. And then you go, I don't want to speed anymore. I learned my lesson. But I do want to speed some more.
Day 4, the last hurrah. People go crazy. Fast roads. This is where Sterling Moss hit nearly 200 miles an hour back in the 50s. Sadly, we won't be hitting that speed. It takes us back to Brescia from Bologna. In 4 days, we see all the sights most tourists see in 2 weeks. That's my way to travel. Thank you, saw it. Thank you, saw it. Thank you.
Well, we've done it, we've finished. We didn't embarrass ourselves, we didn't damage the car, and a lot of people crashed. And good drivers crashed. I was stunned by that.
Sterling Moss said this was the greatest race of his life, and it was the greatest race of my life, too. So in that respect, I actually have something in common with Sterling. I know it's a story.
Mm-hmm.